The National Football League has the highest earning annual revenue of any professional sports league in the entire world. Major League Baseball brings in just over half of what the NFL makes, despite playing nearly 9 times more games per season. But regardless of this incredible success, there are still ways the league can improve. Most importantly, conference and divisional alignments. Hi, I'm Jerry Mander, and I created this channel to tackle the political challenges caused by congressional redistricting. But from time to time, we're going to leave politics completely behind and have a little fun. Welcome to the first installment of Let's Redistrict, the National Football League. The most recent NFL realignment took place in 2002. 32 teams were divided into 2 conferences, each containing 4 divisions, each containing 4 teams. While other 2-conference leagues, such as the NBA and NHL, often divide themselves by East and West, the NFL's conferences are the result of 2 previously existing leagues merging into one, but keeping their separate identities. Because of this history, sometimes teams in the same state, sometimes in the same city, are in different conferences. And due to the current scheduling format, even teams who share a home stadium only see each other on the field they share once every 4 years. If we were to draw lines between teams in each division and shade in the area between those lines, the resulting map would look like this. Here we find several spatial overlaps, some huge distances between division rivals, and a few geographic anomalies, like calling the Dallas Cowboys an Eastern team, and the Dolphins as the odd ones out at the southern tip of Florida, playing in the same division as 3 Northeastern teams. Some teams face significant advantages and disadvantages in the distances they have to travel for games, and some are so far apart that their fans have to adjust to 2-hour time differences to watch their team play divisional rivals. We're going to redraw the NFL map the same way states redistrict their congressional lines, and use some of the more common redistricting rules to help us make difficult choices. So, in order of priority, and to the best of our ability, conferences and divisions should 1. Have equal population. In this case, we'll call that contain an equal number of teams. 2. Not overlap or cross into each other. 3. Be geographically compact. We'll keep the shortest possible distance between division members. 4. Not split up existing boundaries. We'll try our best to keep cities and states together. And 5. Preserve traditional communities of interest. In politics, this means not splitting up established divisions like neighborhoods and school districts. In today's case, we'll say that means trying not to cross time zones, as well as maintaining long-standing rivalries when possible. So let's look at potential conference lines. We'll want to keep the traditional 2-conference system of 16 teams each, if for no other reason than to not further mess with the playoff brackets. As said earlier, the typical move is to align by East and West. If we were to draw our line strictly using longitudinal locations of each team's home stadium, the divide would look like this. While it makes logical sense, we can already see some challenges. This line cuts some teams off from their closest regional rivals, and while it keeps the East nice and compact, it does no favors for the Western teams' travel plans. A north-south divide would be unique and fun, but we'd again be splitting up regional rivalries, and we just can't do this to the Seattle Seahawks. They are going to have long travel routes no matter what we do, but this alignment would give them only one in-conference opponent within a 1,500-mile radius. So we're going to need to be creative, and perhaps we're better off establishing divisions first. Starting out, we have 5 teams relatively close to each other, with the aforementioned Seahawks looking on from afar. So we have a few options. First, we could determine which 4 in this clump of 5 make the most sense together, and put the 5th into a division with the Seahawks and the next closest teams, the Broncos and Chiefs. But who gets booted out of the Southwest? San Francisco is the least southern of the group, but we don't want to split up California. The Arizona Cardinals are the least western, but the farthest of the group from the Seahawks. Is it more important that the Raiders have moved inland to Las Vegas, or that they still hold a rich history in both Los Angeles and the Bay Area? Ultimately, we have to go back to our criteria list, which prioritizes the shortest possible distance between divisional teams over these other questions. All of these southwestern teams are guaranteed to have others close by no matter where the lines fall, so we have to start with the Seahawks as the most remote team in the entire league. Measuring the distance from stadium to stadium, the closest team to Seattle is the 49ers, followed by the Raiders. Without measuring, I would have guessed that the next closest would be the Denver Broncos, but I was surprised to discover that one stadium is closer. SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, home to both the Rams and Chargers. This puts two teams tied as the third closest to Seattle, two teams that we don't want to split up based on other criteria from our list. The difference between LA and Denver isn't so drastic that we couldn't take the Broncos and make a Northwest division, but that would leave the two Los Angeles teams and the Cardinals looking for a fourth divisional rival, which would likely need to be the Chiefs over 1,600 miles and 2 time zones away in Kansas City. The better option is to keep all the California teams together and create a Pacific Coast division with the Seahawks. That leaves the Raiders and Cardinals to join with the Broncos and Chiefs, which also keeps most of the current AFC West together. This division connects the American heartland to the far side of the Rocky Mountains, so let's call this the Rocky Heart Division. Now let's move our attention towards the Southeast. Texas has 2 teams we want to keep together, Florida has 3, and the Saints are stuck right in between them. If we put the Saints with the Florida teams, that's a full division, but then the Texas teams would have to cover a ton of space to reach the next closest possible opponents. If the Saints go with Texas, then their logical fourth team would be the Titans, while the Falcons would join the Florida crew. But there may be an even better way. While we'd like to keep entire states together, compact divisions is higher on our priority list. And, in order to minimize the distance between teams, we can draw this line, including the Buccaneers in a Gulf Coast division. This now allows us to make a Southeast division made up of the Dolphins, Jaguars, and Falcons, and we need to choose a fourth between the Titans and Panthers. I was amazed to discover that the distance from each of these teams to the Falcons in Atlanta are only 6 miles off from being exactly the same. That's not enough to be a determining factor, so then we measure both teams' distances to Jacksonville and Miami. The Panthers become the clear favorite, which is a great fit with the pre-existing sports rivalries between Charlotte and Atlanta, and directly connects the Panthers to the Jaguars, 2 teams that were created in the same year and both named after large cats. Of all the current real-life divisions, the NFC North is the only one to make full geographic sense and, in my opinion, is filled with some of the best history and rivalries the sport has ever seen. This is an excellent division as is, 10 out of 10, no notes. And now we have a clear pathway out from Tennessee to the Colts, Bengals, and Browns, who conveniently all reside in the Ohio Valley region, giving us further geographic validation. We've now reached the final 8 Northeast teams, where we may have saved the hardest decisions for last. We have some excellent rivalries we might not want to break up, such as the Patriots and Jets, and the Giants and Eagles. And while the Steelers-Ravens rivalry isn't as historic, when it peaks, it can be epic. We also have some geography to consider. We'll want the Commanders and Ravens together due to their proximity within the DMV supermetro, and we can also pair the Eagles and Steelers who share the state of Pennsylvania. Then there's the Giants and Jets who share a stadium, just like the Rams and Chargers. But despite being labeled New York teams, MetLife Stadium is in New Jersey. So, do they or don't they need to join a division with the Buffalo Bills, who are legitimately within the borders of New York? Or do we look at the New York moniker as a reference to the city, in which case the Giants and Jets are part of the same metro, whereas the Bills are not. The best options we have available, which keep the divisions compact without overlapping, are either 1. A north-south split, which puts the Pats with the 3 New York or at least New York adjacent teams, and grouping the Pennsylvania and DMV pairs together, or 2. An east-west split, which sacrifices the Pennsylvania link between the Eagles and Steelers in favor of keeping the best rivalries in place. Our criteria list prioritizes the distance between teams over other considerations, and the Eagles happen to be closer to the Jets, Giants, and Patriots than they are to Pittsburgh. This does leave us with an awkward stretch from DC and Baltimore up and around to Buffalo, but these cities are still far closer together than most of our other divisions. We'll call this one the Allegheny Division for the mountain range that comes at the very least near all these cities, and the teams associated with Philly, New York City, and Boston we'll call the Independence Division for these cities' roles in American history. We finally have our divisions. Now we just need to solve the question of conferences. We have 3 divisions which very clearly belong in the East, and 2 which belong in the West. But what to do with the 3 down the middle? Our Gulf Coast division is especially difficult to pinpoint, since the Cowboys are farther west than the Chiefs, while the Buccaneers are farther east than the Falcons. No matter what, we are going to see some funky distances between teams in the same conference, but that matters far less than it did in divisions where each team plays each other twice per season. So why don't we go to the final item on our criteria list, maintaining communities of interest, and make our decision based on time zones, which can have a significant impact on the fan viewing experience. Our Gulf Coast and Great Lakes divisions each have 3 teams operating on Central Times with 1 Eastern, while the Ohio Valley is split with 2 in each zone. So we'll put the division with more Eastern Time teams in the Eastern Conference. And there we have it. An Eastern Conference made up of the Independence, Allegheny, Ohio Valley, and Southeast divisions, and a Western Conference covering the Gulf Coast, Great Lakes, Mountain Heart, and Pacific Coast divisions. Out of curiosity, I went ahead and made a what-if scenario grouping the Saints with the Florida teams and came up with this map, which would give us a Mid-Atlantic division from Atlanta to Baltimore and a Rust Belt division with the Ohio teams joining Pittsburgh and Buffalo. While I really like these groupings, in order to do so would mean keeping this stretch from Houston to Indianapolis that we see in the current AFC South. That makes very little sense. Comment down below your thoughts, and let me know what else you'd like to see me redistrict in the future. Subscribe if you want to learn how this methodology affects the balance of political power in your home state, or even if you just want to see what crazy thing we try to redistrict next. I'll see you then.